Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. I believe the audio should be good, but let me know if there's any issues with audio or if there might be an image or something I missed on your challenge or any note you may have had that I did not see. So it looks like we got 5 submissions, so definitely pretty good amount of participants on this competition. It was definitely a bigger task than what we typically do, but the weapon complexity's not too crazy, so definitely glad quite a bit of you were able to join in. But we got a submit from PARKA, and I believe that is Doneco. Yeah, okay, Doneco. And I believe that's Trey submit right there. And Valerie. And I was in, for some reason, streamer mode, so I can't see your username. Rustom. Um, Another thing too that'd be helpful if you all could put a link to your ArtStation under your submissions, just so that way when we announce the competition winners that we can include your ArtStation link as well. But with that out of the way, let's get started here. So we will begin with PARKA's submission here. Let me double check Discord one more time to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, cool. All right. And I got your images pulled up here. Let me read your notes here though. Butt stock, 4K tries, okay. Okay, sweet. Dang, yeah, that's quite a bit of work you put in to get it done that quickly, so sweet, yeah. One last thing, let me check. I know there was some try counts on this. Okay, yeah, let me grab this right here just so I don't miss it. So what we were looking for was the launcher at 15 to 20,000 tries and the grenade round itself to be at 1K tries. But yeah, looking at this, looks like you got a little high, but it's fine. It's not too far off. Um, and I'm not sure if we had a try count for the butt stock, but that's also fine as well. And okay, yeah, so it looks like you're a little high on the low poly, but I'll check out the low poly here in a second and let you know if I spot anything that could be optimized further. But overall, this is looking really nice. My main feedback would probably be for the plastic here. I would avoid the default scratches that Substance Painter comes with. The issue with the default Substance Painter scratches is they look very procedural. You could see it's just like a straight scratch, another straight scratch, another one, another one. They just don't feel quite realistic. Maybe in our reference here we got some better examples of scratches, but the scratches typically are not perfectly straight. They will have some curve to them. There's a surface imperfections pack. It's like a degroover pack. If you Google, I believe it's surface imperfections pack, you should be able to find it, but it comes with some really nice scratches and scuffs, which might help you out quite a bit here. And apart from that, I think the height damage in the plastic is a little strong, a little too extreme. I'd pull back a bit on that. But the metals are looking really nice, especially the color variation that you have going on in the metals. That's definitely really nice to see. And for the trigger, I do like how worn out it's looking. I'd probably pull back a bit though on the edge wear. I think you got an edge wear generator here that's a little too strong. I'd pull it back slightly and maybe chip away manually with like a paintbrush and remove some more paint here if this is how worn you're going, because right now you can kind of tell it's coming from an edge wear generator just by how perfectly curved it is on the edge of the trigger there. So just breaking that up a bit would help. Another thing too is I would add some more wear on the metal pins here. They look pretty clean. So just getting a little more wear on those guys would help. And let's take a look at some other images here. I like the paint chips you have going on here. I think by the barrel though, it's getting a little too intense. You can see the strange effect where the edge wear is happening on this edge and then also this edge. The edges inside the barrel, I'd actually pull back quite a bit on the edge wear just because they're so tucked away and hidden. It'd be very difficult for the edge to make contact with the wall or the ground or something. It's mostly going to be these outside edges that get worn out. So I would definitely pull back quite drastically on these internal edge chips. And then also here, like these little corner areas, it's going to be extremely difficult for something to take contact with those parts, so I'd pull back on the edge wear on that as well. The screw is looking slightly too worn out. I would try to keep the edge wear just specifically on the edges of the screw. It could be the UVs on the screw might be a little too distorted if you straightened it up. That could be causing that. But let me take a look at these other shots here. Yeah, this is looking really nice. It does look like there's a bit of a tangent error going on the model here. It could be your shading. So typically what you need to do is shade your model based off of UV borders. So if your UV borders here are stitched together, that's probably what's causing this issue. So you either need to split the UV seam here or add a bevel so that way it shades cleaner. But other than that, I do really like the grunge you got on that front side. It's pretty cool. Another detail you could try is some height damage to the actual metal. Some of these older images probably don't have the resolution I'm needing to best demonstrate the height damage I'm referring to, but typically the metal will get some very small light dings and damage to them, so you could look at doing something like that for some of these edges. And let me double check on this. I feel like the front sight should have some type of white paint on it, but maybe it doesn't. I don't quite got a reference image for that front sight. Let me see if I can locate one. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this weapon unfortunately is super old, so it's very difficult locating reference images for it. But that's just something I'd look into. See if you could get some white paint on the text on the site here. It's also, it is kind of so beaten up that you can't really see the text. In some cases too, with the AAA games, or I guess games in general, we might even add white paint to the text just so that way it reads better in the game. Because if it's only height information, it might not show up very well. So you could fake it a bit and derive a bit from the reference and actually add white paint inside the text there if you like. But yeah, let's move on to the UVs. One thing I might not be able to tell from the UVs, I'm not sure which shells you've mirrored and which shells you have not mirrored. Yeah, let me know which shells you've mirrored on this. But if you haven't mirrored any shells, that's fine. But I would definitely recommend mirroring shells as much as possible, just so that way you get the most highest textile density as possible. You can see on some of these edges, it looks a little low resolution. kind of like older generation game console textures, and a lot of that's most likely because of the lack of textile density on the UV shells. So I would probably, you could go as far as mirroring this other side of the stock if you needed. It's especially since it's the same exact shell. You do got to keep in mind though, if you add some painted text on the side of the stock here, that you might need to add a split in the UV seam, so that way that text is not mirrored on the other side. And same for the barrel. I would definitely try to get a little more aggressive on doing mirroring on the UV shells. Don't do like a direct butterfly mirror, especially in first person, because it can get very obvious. So you do want to be a little careful with where you're mirroring, but certainly try to mirror some more shells if you can. And then straighten your shells out. You can see there's some of these shells that are quite crooked, and you just want to make sure you straighten these out. You'll get a tighter pack, less chances that you get map bleeding, but overall it really makes it easier to pack these shells as well. And some of them are getting a bit too close to the UV border there, especially this one too. You could split one of these UVs, or sorry, these edges. So you could split this one and just straighten the whole shell so it's perfectly vertical. But yeah, apart from that, let's take a look at the low poly here. Yeah, the low poly is looking pretty good. Yeah, I think the most part for the low poly, I would probably, you can connect every other edge down here, so that way it's taking up less tries, especially here where the curvature isn't really doing much. It's just pretty straight shot. Same for down here, the curvature is not doing too much on the stock there, so adjusting that would help reduce try count. It's a little hard to tell, but down here might be a little too dense for that sling swivel. And I think you could also reduce the edge count on this area right here. It looks like there's a bit too many edges. But other than that though, from the images, it looks like you did a pretty solid job on the low poly, but I do feel like we could probably shave off 30% of the tries just by getting a little more nitpicky with some of these smaller pieces. And if you look at the tube here, you could add a few more edges, so that way, by a few more edges, sorry, I mean like every other edge, you could add some more edges here. So that way there's less of a chance that you see that polygonal stepping effect on the end, especially for first person. But yeah, other than that, really, really nice work. That was PARKA's submission. Let's move over to, I believe that's Doneko. Yeah, Doneko. Apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. But sweet, looks like you did hits under 20,000 tries, so great. 4K textures. Okay. And looks like you went a little high on the grenade, but I think that's fine. It's, especially with next-gen consoles, it shouldn't be an issue. To hit 1,300 versus 1,000, it shouldn't be too bad. But one thing to keep in mind though with these grenade launcher rounds, if it's a type of weapon that has them on like ammo links, you'll have to be much more critical as to how much you optimize it, just because there could be 20 of them on a giant grenade launcher ammo link, and 20 times 1,000 tries is already going to be 20,000 tries, almost as much as a weapon. But what you got here though is fine, especially this type of weapon. It's only taken one grenade. But let's definitely look at this texturing. It's really, really solid. It's excellent. Yeah, this is really nice texturing. Yeah, these textures are lovely. Very, very good. Also, the renders are really, really nice. This is excellent. Sweet. Yeah, this is really nice. I'm going to. You're definitely pretty solid with. Yeah, it is really nice texturing. You're really solid with the texturing. But I'm going to give some feedback on the textures. It's going to be really nitpicky though, so keep that in mind. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get a little nitpicky just so that way you can pick something up from the stream and that it's helpful for you. But overall, really excellent work on this. Um, what I would say is probably some more height damage, especially with how beat up this metal is, especially the paint. I'd expect some more height damage happening to the metal. Nothing too crazy because after all it is metal, it's not going to get damaged as if it's a tin can, but just some imperfections on the height of the edges would help. You have it a bit happening here. So similar idea to this, just some bigger dings. And with this switch here, when the user's fingers constantly pushing this switch up and down, it's going to rub the paint out. And it's not going to be like a paint chip rub. It's going to be like a rubbed effect. Let me see if you got it on the texturing. Like here, this is a paint chip effect. You don't want that happening when it's wear happening due to contact. Let me see if I can locate kind of what I'm referring to. Something like this. You can see it's kind of rubbing off. Not sure if there's another area. It probably actually would be my main feedback with the wear you're adding on this is it's quite a bit of paint chip wear, but it's not a lot of like rubbed off gradient type wear. So I think some more gradient wear would help kind of balance or counterbalance the amount of chipping you got. But yeah, back to this piece, just more of a gradient wear because the thumb is not going to cause paint chips. It's just going to cause this rubbing effect on that switch there. I can't tell from the reference. There's not a lot of resolution. So no worries if this is something that's not really happening. But perhaps some wear happening to the side of the cylinder shape here from the switch swapping to the left or right, whichever direction it's going to. Yeah, that'd be my only thought on that. But yeah, overall this is excellent. The soot and like gunk you got going on inside this crevice is excellent. Really, really nice job. This is very lovely texturing work for sure. I think the edge wear is getting slightly too much on this area. I think one contradiction it does have is this edge up here is much more exposed than this edge. So I would picture this front edge to be the main area that's quite worn out, and this edge to be a little worn, but not as worn as it is. The front edges are usually the edges that always get the most amount of wear. And back to like the rub wear effect, I would get some like rub wear happening to the swivel at the top here from the user's thumb opening up the grenade launcher's tube. But yeah, this is really nice. It's not always needed, but you could experiment with like some hairs that are collecting on the crevices there. That might help. And you could try, this is very optional, but like a grease pen or something on the side of the stock here. Like a, they're actually called armory markings, but like 25 or 2/8, something like that on the side of the stock there might introduce some pretty cool colors. And this is just like a render note, but I would introduce some renders that show the overall grenade launcher. You got lots of really nice close-ups, but An overall shot of the grenade launcher would be nice. But other than that, let's move on to your low poly here. Let me check the time real quick. I want to make sure I'm not getting too lengthy. All right. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. For the low poly, let me take a look here. Yeah, this looks great. Might be getting a little dense right there where that pin is, but it might be acceptable though, especially if there's a weapon inspect. Whenever there's a weapon inspect, it completely exposes the side of the weapon there, so it might be appropriate. Yeah, all this looks great. Yeah, I don't know if I have much feedback on the low poly. You really nailed it. I mean, this is like super nitpicky. It might not even, I probably wouldn't even bother addressing it if you don't want to, but you could just cap this whole entire shape instead of welding it to this piece and then just have this rivet piece floating on top of it. You don't necessarily have to weld those together. Let me confirm though. Yeah, I believe that is like a rivet that floats there. So that's just a side note, nothing too major. But yeah, I don't have much feedback on the low poly, especially you got it within the 20,000 budget. So I think you nailed it. Yeah, this is great. Really excellent job here to reducing the edges as it flows down. I would say, yeah, anyone on the stream that's looking for like a really solid low poly, what a low poly should look like. I think Doneko here, again, apologies if I'm saying your name wrong, kind of nailed it out of the ballpark in terms of what a really good weapon low poly should look like. Perhaps this area could use some more try count, especially again if there's some type of weapon inspect. You might want to watch out for that, but perhaps removing a couple edges here. It's getting a bit dense there, but yeah, other than that, really excellent job. Let's take a look at the V shells. Yeah, I think that looks great. And apologies, I can't tell what shells are mirrored or not mirrored, so I could call out something that might actually already be mirrored. But for example, the side of the stock here, I think we could mirror these shells to get even more resolution if you wanted. But if you do plan on having some type of unique text on the side, as I mentioned on PARKA's submit, you might need to add a UV seam there. But other than that, it looks great. The padding could be getting a bit tight. I would watch out for that. But sometimes it's hard to tell from these images. But yeah, okay, looking at this, I think it's getting slightly too tight. Reason being is if this texture was dropped to like a 10K texture, you might start seeing the map bleeding happening on the stock there, so you just want to watch out for that. And I'm not sure if that's the barrel. I think that is the barrel UV shell. It's taking up quite a bit of space. Yeah, if you don't have any text or anything happening on the barrel, you could probably just mirror it directly down the middle. But again, especially with this task, I mean, you have 4K textures, so I see why you didn't have to go too crazy with the mirroring. But especially the inside of the barrel, though, make sure that's all mirrored up. But yeah, this is excellent. Really, really solid work. Let's move on to, I believe, sorry, let me check your name again. Trey, okay, there we go. It's always difficult sometimes at Discord usernames. I can't connect people's names with their submits, but yeah, so this is Trey's submit. This is looking really nice. And I see too you went with more of like a cleaner route, which is completely fine. Sweet. Yeah, so for the texturing, I think you could wear it out a bit more. It is slightly too clean feeling, especially like the bottom here is quite worn looking, but everything else is fairly clean. So I would try to get everything to be kind of consistent with the type of wear you have going on there. And what you could do is try to use more like photo-based alphas, kind of like what Deneco's here is utilizing. A lot of these scratches and stuff are derived from actual worn out objects. So using the same idea, you could try to apply some wear to the barrel here. So that way it's less clean looking. And for the wood, I believe you're using like a substance, a procedural wood texture. I would try to use more of a texture, or sorry, an actual photo-based image for the wood. Just because the procedurals never tend to do that great of a job of creating a realistic wood texture. Um, yeah, it's very rare for a procedural to do a good job with wood. It's just very difficult. So I'd recommend using an actual image of wood projected onto the wood here to get a better appearance of the wood happening. I think you could get some more like dark staining on the side of the wood as well from the oils on the actual metal surfaces kind of bleeding onto the wood. That would be a nice touch. Um, yeah, it's looking nice. Yeah, and back to kind of like the clean area, you can see it looks a little too clean. It doesn't have a lot of character to it right now from this angle. But you got a lot of lovely character like on this piece. So try to get the same idea you did to the receiver here on the other parts. Um, but yeah, other than that, this is looking really nice. I'd also get like the milling lines happening on the barrel. The photos or the reference photos I have are a little low res. It's kind of hard to tell, but this one has a pretty good example of the milling lines that you might see on the barrel, especially like more oils like this. That's always really nice to see. So more milling lines, more oil, some more dust specks, and some more wear. Especially oil around these pins would help too. But the variation you have on the surface here around the pins is really nice. And looking at the polymer or the plastic, especially this one is feeling a bit more like rubber versus the old Vietnam synthetic plastic. So I think if you increase the roughness or gloss, whichever shader you're using, to be more shiny like this one, more reflective, it'll read more like plastic. Usually these values are more of a rubber value. And for the height damage, I would try actually like hand painting height damage on the polymer. You could see here the height damage feels like some type of like plastic, like acne almost. I would try to actually hand paint some height damage here. I'm actually curious looking at Deneco's stock here. Looks like he doesn't have a lot of height damage, but like this one's a pretty good example. Where he does have it, it's deliberately placed. It's not really like a tiling material that adds the height damage. He's kind of preserving the height damage for deliberate areas, which is definitely a nice way to go about it. And you could always experiment too with, like you can see here, he added these orange paint splotches on the side there just to give it character. So definitely feel free to go that route if you want. As for the low poly, it's looking pretty solid. I'm not sure if... Okay, you got it here. Okay, yeah, so you got that one at 20,000. This one at under 1,000, so excellent. Okay, cool. Yeah, look at the low poly. So like they swivel here, it's pretty dense in edges, but up here you could see it's starting to create this stepping effect. What I would do is I'd optimize the swivel down here more, so that way it's utilizing less edges, and reallocate those edges to these areas where you can see it's starting to step and facet. So we do want to clean this up a bit so it's more smoother. And then you could bevel the edge of the rubber here. It's slightly sharp. So just a little bevel in Blender, whichever package you're using, will kind of make that feel less blocky. Let me see what else we got here. Yeah, I think everything else is looking pretty solid. I'm not exactly sure what it looks like from first person view. Okay, never mind, you got a shot here. Okay, yeah, that's looking pretty good. Yeah, okay. Main feedback maybe is you could probably remove this edge and this edge, perhaps. Um, or maybe it's not those edges. I think what's a little uh, throwing me off a bit is right here, the cylinder is pretty low poly, and then the edges right here, the small bevel is pretty high poly. So I would actually get a few more edge loops on the cylinder here. They don't have to connect all the way down, just for this area, so that way when the user pops the grenade open, the tube isn't faceting right there. But yeah, other than that, this looks pretty good. I would watch out for this area. It's getting a little sharp. I'd either take a look at, I'm not sure if it's that sharp on the reference. Maybe it is. I guess it kind of is, but it could be the poly count or tri count, whichever, is just not dense enough. So you might need to add a few more edge loops there too. And these edges in the middle, you could clean them up some more. They're not really doing a whole lot to the silhouette, so you could move this edge down a bit to connect with this center edge, and then move this edge up a bit, just so that way it's one single edge if that's a route you wanted to go. And same here too, these vertical spans, you can crunch them down a bit. You can kind of see Deneko's, he's cleaned up quite a bit there and crunched it down, so you could try the same approach there. And then for the front of the grenade, I would connect every other edge on this grenade. I think someone in the challenge discussion was actually talking a bit about this. Yeah. I believe his name is George, but you could see here he has the edges collapsed as it gets thinner in the center of the sphere. So you could do that same thing, and that will save you a pretty decent amount of tries, and maybe the tries you saved here you can use to add some more edges at the back here where it's starting to facet a bit. But yeah, just something to think about there. I would watch out for like a detail down here that's so tucked away and hidden. You could probably just bake it down flat, especially if it's in an area where nobody's going to see it. But yeah, other than that, excellent job on the low poly there. As for the UVs, this looks pretty solid. Again, it is hard for me to tell with some of these UV submits as to which shells are UV mirrored and which ones aren't. So if I call out a shell that should be mirrored and it already is, then apologies, just ignore that note. But looking at this, it does look like you utilize quite a bit of mirroring. I'm not exactly sure if this is a UV pack. Okay, I guess it is. Okay. Yeah, I would definitely clean up this UV pack a bit more. I would try to get it more packed in around these areas. There's quite a bit of a large gap in this area. So get more of a tighter pack similar to this one here. You can see there's little to no space in those areas there. Same thing for this one. We got quite a bit of space up top there. So try to get a tighter pack, or sorry, fill out those spaces. Regarding the tightness of the pack, it does look pretty good, but I would probably give it a bit more padding. It could definitely start bleeding once the mapping takes effect in game. Yeah, that would be my only note with that. The map mapping probably plays the biggest role when you're, like, let's say you're playing in a multiplayer match and your teammates next to you. The textures on his gun are going to be significantly lower resolution size than yours, so his gun is probably going to start bleeding, like the wood texture will start bleeding in an odd area, like on this piece you'll start seeing a wood texture happening up there, and that's basically what happens when the padding is not given enough space. So I'll just give it probably this amount of space but doubled. I think that would fix it. So about that much there would be a better spot to be in. And then as for the actual like shells, I would straighten some of these shells more. I think some of them are very circular shaped, and you could just split the UV seam and then straighten them. That'd probably be the best approach for that. You would also get a much tighter pack as well, so it's always good common practice, especially these shells, to straighten them. You did it on the side here, which is great. So do exactly what you did on the side here to these circular shaped shells, and you'll get a much better pack. But yeah, that is I keep forgetting your was it Troy? Sorry, let me double check. I don't know why I'm so terrible with remembering people's names. Trey. That was Trey submits. And then Valerie. Let's take a look at your submit here. And it looks like you did get it within the try count limits, so excellent. One thing I will say right out the gate with this one, I absolutely love the presentation you got on this. This is really cool. I love the Vietnam photographs in the background of this. That is really, really cool. So excellent job on that. Yeah, that is sweet. That's definitely, I haven't seen someone do that before. So very excellent idea on your presentation. So cool. So anyways, yeah, as for the texturing, let's take a look at this. Okay, yeah, this looks really nice. Sweet. Yeah, okay. So probably my first note is the plastic. It's starting to feel like rubber. You could even see with the rubber, it kind of looks like the same material. So I would add some more gloss or roughness to the stock polymer. For the metal, I think you could get a little more edge chips going on the metal. Similar feedback I had for Denecos. It's just like you can see this perfect edge that goes across. There's no imperfection to it. So just getting a bit more height damage to some of these edges would help. But I do love the discoloration you got here. That's really nice. I would take a look at some of these pins, like this one here. You can see it's really clean. So I would try to wear the edges rounded out a bit more. And for the wood texture, I believe that's a wood texture. Let me. Okay, I was seeing if there's other angles. Okay, yeah, it is a wood texture. I gotcha. Yeah, I think it's struggling to read like wood, mainly because it's very shiny and there's not a lot of grain inside the wood. It's a very difficult material to pull off. I think what you're trying to pull off is like a wood texture under it, and it's been painted on top of, which is definitely a very difficult material to pull off. I think for the paints, if you are going that route with the paint here, add some like dirt and grime between the paint and the wood, because when the paint's lifted up like this, a lot of dirt and dust will collect between the paint edges there. So that would probably help it a bit, and also just get more variation on the actual wood surface, and variation that you would see on wood, not necessarily variation that you'd see on metal. And more scuffing and chips on the exposed part of the wood here. I think there's a slight contradiction because you got quite a bit of chipping here on especially these areas that are quite hidden, but the areas that are quite exposed, there's little to no chips on it. So I would try to clean up the storytelling a bit there. I would actually try to get more chipping and exposed wood chips happening on this very exposed edge here that's popping out of the side of the gun there. And then same thing with this pin here, add some more wear to it. It does look like you have some oils going on some of these renders, so it's a little hard to notice the oils and grime. I think Doneko has a pretty solid example for like the oils and grime that you might want to achieve for that one. Speaking of which, I actually didn't really get the chance to examine your wood, Doneko, and looking at it right now, it does feel a bit procedural. So I'd say same feedback to yours. I would try to use like an actual photograph texture of wood for the wood grip there. And that'll get you much more of a photorealistic look, just because the procedural wood still has a slight CGI fingerprint to it. You could see the grain too. It's kind of perfectly diagonal, and there's not a lot of shape language to the wood. But yeah, back to Valerie. Where were we? Oh yeah, the oils, sorry. Yeah, so try to get some more oils and grime around yours. You do currently have it, and it looks really good. I think it could just get pushed a bit more. But I do also see you're going with more of a cleaner route. You're not going as worn and damaged as Doneko's, and that's completely fine. I think you could push the oils more without getting it too grimy. So I do like the subtlety you got going on. Yeah, the weld is excellent. Very, very nice job on that. Um, yeah, that is really, really nice. You could have areas where the text is not as deep as the other text. You could see here the text has the same deepness across the surface here. I think on one of these reference images, like this one here, you can see it's deeper on the L right here, and then as it gets here, it's less deep. I'm not sure if that's caused by the factory or someone's hand rubbing against the metal here. I doubt it's someone's hand, because that would have to be a few 100 years old weapon for that to happen. So I think it's just the factory didn't do a good job stamping the metal. So I'd create the same effect there on this one. Yeah, and then I do like the directional wear you have on the metal here. You could probably make it more intense. Right now it's pretty subtle. It's kind of hard to notice. But yeah, really nice job on that. And then yeah, make sure you bump the gloss up on the plastic there. It's just leaning more closer to rubber right there. But yeah, excellent. Let's take a look at your UVs. I thought it was funny that you rendered the UVs with a white background. It reminds me of that Counter-Strike meme where the flashbang goes off um, and blinds the person. It's kind of funny, but this totally works. My eyes will get used to it. Yeah, this looks great. I can tell from your UV packs you are mirroring, which is good. You have less shells. Like some of these other submits, I'm noticing quite a bit of UV shells, and that typically keys off to me that not a lot of UV mirroring was going on. So I think you're more aggressive with the UV mirroring with this. So really nice job. I would say my only note is, I know this is really nitpicky, but you could split the UV shell up here, and you could actually even butterfly mirror this entire shell. That's one thing you could do, but another thing is just split the edge there and then straighten this shell out. I know it's very difficult to do. Sometimes you got to use like a peel mode to straighten it, but I tried to do that with that shell. Same thing with this shell, straighten it. This shell too, you can straighten it as well. But other than that, you did do a really nice job straightening these shells. And your UV padding looks great. Maybe there's a little bit too much padding on this, but honestly, I would prefer too much padding than too little. So I think that's fine. Yeah, that looks great too. Yeah, that looks great. And as for the low poly, not a big issue, but for the low poly submits, I would prefer it in quads, a quad mesh, kind of like these where they're in quads. It makes it a bit easier to check if one of these edges are just like a straggler or if it's like something natural with the connections. But other than that, I should be able to still take a deeper look at this to see. Looking at this pin here, I can't tell, but it does look like quite a bit of geometry is being used up just for this small pin here. You could, if this pin is being extruded from the geometry, you don't need a hole deleted out for the pin. You can just make this one flat entire face and just have the pin clipping through the geometry or floating on top of it. Same thing for this one here. I think you are leaving these like hole cutouts, which you could just delete these holes inside here and just cap it and just let the geometry clip into the other geometry. Unless there's some type of significant animation that's happening there, um, it's nothing you need to really leave in the low poly geo. Um, yeah, apart from that, I think this looks good. A little nitpicky, but it can sometimes save you in the long run. But I would try to get these edges where their verts are not connected, but basically on the same point, so that way there's no chance that there's a gap in here where you see like light bleed or something. So sometimes it's good to make sure these verts are connected but not welded, if that makes sense. And yeah, probably for this screw, quite a bit of geometry is being used up for it. You could either bake this whole screw down and just have this this little hexagon um, left in the low poly. So basically, delete everything here and just have this little hexagon extrusion happening, and you can bake that down flat, and it should bake down pretty cleanly. And especially if you kind of adapt that to other areas, it can easily save a couple thousand tries. The screw under the shotgun, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I'd bake it down flat. I feel like nowadays with the menus, the game menus, where you see the weapon laying on a table or something, it would be a shame if it was baked down flat. So I don't think that's needed. But I do think you could crunch this down even more, so that way it still has a slight silhouette to it, but it's using less geometry. I think a good example for this would be the actual inside of the screw here. It would be V-shaped, so you'd basically connect the center vertices. And you could probably even delete this little canal around the screw, so just leave the actual I don't know what this is. Yeah, Phillips screw, this little Phillips screw area, leave that modeled in, but crunch down this area and bake it down flat. But that's my only note for that. I'm not sure what type of grenade you went with. Oh, okay. I think you went with a different grenade. Maybe. I could be wrong. Yeah, I'm not sure why some of these grenades look different. I guess I never did specify which type of grenade, which is completely fine. Okay. Yeah, so for this grenade, it sounds strange, but you actually could bake down these steps. You don't actually need these steps modeled in. I'd remove every other edge inside these steps, and it should still bake down fine. I mean, it's not going to look pretty up close, but typically with these games, the grenade's either going to be inside the weapon or it's going to be the shell ejecting out. So there's not really a lot of chance you might see these steps here. But yeah, that would be my only note on that one. I think this cylinder in here is getting pretty dense. I would crunch that up a bit. But other than that, it looks great. Let's go ahead and move on to, let me check this. I had streamer mode on for some reason. It got turned on and I couldn't tell whose name this was. Rustom. Okay, excellent. And let me check one last thing. Okay, cool. And yeah, no problem, Trey. All right, so this is Rustom submit. Okay, you hit 21,000 tries, so not too far off. Oh, I noticed you mentioned polygons. Okay, I think you made a mistake. You meant triangles because yeah, 21,000 polygons is different than triangles. I think you just made a small mistake there. That's completely fine. Or not? Maybe you do have 20,000 polygons. I don't see polygons on this. That's fine. But yeah, let me take a look at this. Yeah, either way, it doesn't matter because you did hit 20,000 triangle range, so there's nothing wrong with that at all. So yeah, let's take a look at this. So looking at the polymer, I think the polymer is looking really close to the metal or the plastic. It looks very close to the variation that's happening on the metal there. So I'd either make it darker and more glossy, that might help. Looks like the submission, he went with more of a brighter plastic, which is fine. Or you could go with more of the darker plastic here that's pretty glossy, but that would be my note on the plastic there. And I feel like too, the variation, you're using like a tiling texture, which is fine, but the problem I'm seeing with this is it's adding too much variation. You can see it's pretty busy with variation. So I would try to reduce the amount of variation and just have more deliberate details in the actual texture. Yeah, and then same note with the scratches here. I would use a surface imperfection pack for the scratches. The surface imperfection pack tends to have scratches that have more character to them. They're not like these straight on gashes. The problem with these scratches is they look like someone was like deliberately scratching in the side of the weapon there. So it tends to not look too realistic with that type of scratch texture. But that'd be my only note with that. Maybe a side like rendering note, but I would try to get more of a rim light on your stock here, and maybe even a rim light on the side here. You could even try to hit the gloss channel a bit so we can see how that looks when it's reflecting. I can tell, I believe your wood texture, you are using an actual like photo image for the wood. Yeah, this one looks more photorealistic, funny enough. So really nice job on that. I would try to make it more shiny, more reflective, because right now it's looking matte. I think that's the biggest probably issue with some of these renders. Like this one's fine, it's a bit more acceptable, but right here, it doesn't have a lot of reflection to it. And the problem with that is it causes the game asset to feel a little dated, kind of like by dated, like before PBR was around, dated like old school Counter-Strike type textures. So I would try to get some more light reflection, either to your material or it's a lack of like a light hitting the side of the weapon there. Like on this shot, it does read a bit better, so it could just be your lighting, but just something to keep in mind. But same thing with this one. You do have some height damages on the metal there, so that looks good. Maybe more on the corners, so watch out for this type of damage on the metal here. It's not really making a lot of, I guess, sense what would cause that. So I would probably remove that detail just because metal tends to be much stronger than that, and it would be a strange incident for that to happen to it. I would try to get more personality going on the grenade launcher's textures too. I think you could try to get some more like either a painted number or some type of red stripe or line at the front of the barrel there, just something to give it more pop. Let's take a look at the reference up here actually. Yeah, especially like the wear, you could see there's quite a bit of wear on the edges here. There's an interesting pink gradation happening there. I'm not sure if that's a camera or what's going on there, but that's a pretty cool detail. The yellow circle or sticker on the side there is pretty interesting. I honestly got no clue what that yellow thing is there. I don't know if that's a sticker or part of their injection molded process. It actually might be where the plastic was injected molded maybe. I'm not sure. They had a way different process back then. But that would be my only note for that. I think the wood, you could try to get some more. You have it a bit, but I would get more extreme darkness on the side here where the oil is leaking onto the wood. And some more variation in the wood too. You could see there's this large shape in the wood. I think that's from the palm of people's hands. The oils from the hands will actually deteriorate the wood or discolor it, and I think that's what's happening here. So try to get that same approach on the wood there for yours. But yeah, apart from that, I think the rest is looking good. I don't have a lot of reference for the ammunition for this type, so I'll just try to look at it based off of what you got here. I am seeing like a cloudy texture to it. I could be wrong. I think you might be using like a clouds fill layer. The issue with the clouds is they don't necessarily give you true grunge material from them. So I would try to use like textures.com and try to get some variation from their textures. That'll probably help out quite a bit. And I don't have reference for this on hand, but if these are screws, again, if it is like this in real life, completely disregard. But if they're screws, I would double check on the reference on that one. But yeah, I think the rest of the texturing looks really solid though. Yeah, I would just try to push the character a bit more on the wear, as well as the material separation. You can see it does have it lacks a bit of separation on the materials, and I think some more edge wear too, especially on the knob here. This piece could get some more edge wear. So feel free to get a little crazy if you have to get it to really pop a bit more. And even the rubber, you could see the rubber in this reference has quite a big contrast from the polymer versus yours. It's starting to bleed and kind of look like the same material. So just something to watch out for. But yeah, other than that, I think the textures came out really nice. All right, and for the low poly, let's take a look at this. You did hit the low poly tri-count target, so I don't think I'll have too much notes on this. Yeah, I think this is looking really nice. Yeah, I'm not seeing much here. This might be like really nitpicky, but you could probably remove this center edge loop here, and it'll still bake down well. But that's just a side note. You could reduce the amount of edges that are happening on the side here, but I don't know. I probably wouldn't bother because you are within the try count, and it would definitely be a shame to reduce these edges more and then try to do like a close-up marmoset render and then see like some stepping there. So that's probably fine. Yeah, I think your low poly honestly is really solid. Maybe this piece could get reduced slightly. I feel like this is like maybe a 32 edge cylinder, when it could probably be more of like a 22 edge cylinder. So that could probably get reduced a bit, but again, I wouldn't worry too much about it. And yeah, the grenade looks really, really well optimized. So yeah, your low poly work is excellent. Really nice work on that. I did notice, oh yeah, your UVs. Okay, I see them here on Discord. Let me pull these up real quick. Alrighty. Yes, I would try to move some of these shells up a bit to fill in this space. Right now there's quite a bit of space up there. But other than that, this pack looks pretty solid for the ammo there. You don't have too many shells, which is good. It tells me you're doing a pretty good job at mirroring. I am curious what these long, skinny shells are. I would take a look at what is causing these super long, thin UV shells. Sometimes when the shells are that thin, something didn't get unwrapped correctly, or you could like stitch another shell so that way it's not so thin. But or it could even be like a bug where there's like just for some reason some really thin face somewhere on your model. So I would investigate what's causing these really thin UV shells. But yeah, other than that, I think this pack looks pretty solid. You could probably butterfly mirror this down the middle. That is if it's the piece I think it is. Maybe it's not. I'm honestly not sure which piece that is. But you probably could mirror, if I'm not mistaken, you could mirror this shell and this shell so that way they're sharing the same UV location. But disregard if there's something asymmetric about it. I believe it has to do with this piece here, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that shell is, but just something to look into. And I think the unwrap is looking good here. I would take a look at what these larger shells are. They could be, I get the feeling they're UV shells that are inside the actual weapon, which if that's the case, I'd lower the resolution quite a bit. A good practice to have is if the first person camera is near the area, the resolution should be 30% more. If it's like in an area where you might see it during like a weapon inspect, it'd probably be about like 20% more, and then internal shells get like 30% less, especially a shell like this, 30 to 40% less. You could even push it to 50% less if it's just absolutely not seen. But yeah, that is my only feedback on that. I feel like the padding is pretty good. Yeah, so I think that looks great. Alright, so I think that is all these submits. Let me check one last time. Yep, it looks like we got everybody. Okay, cool. Alright, so let's choose the winner. Yeah, these, I feel like the yeah, I do think Doneko did a really excellent job on his textures. It's gonna be a really hard one to beat. But the presentation on this one's also lovely. But yeah, I think I would confidently go with Doneko's submit here. Its texturing is really, really gorgeous. Really great work. The low poly was quite solid all around. Nothing major with it. And the UVs look pretty good too. I do think the padding, like especially here, is super, super close. I would try to space up some of these shells, but other than that, yeah, I think we will give first place to Doneko. And let's check out who is second. Let me get these a little closer. Yeah, all these are really nice. Yeah, I feel like Valerie's is really excellent. The texturing's pretty great too. The presentation's lovely. Um, Nothing too major from the low poly. Like the low poly looked pretty solid overall. Uh, we got the Counter Strike flashbang for the UV submit, which is fine. But yeah, other than that, the UVs look good. Um, yeah, I would say definitely second place for Valerie. You did a really good job on this. So we'll give you seconds. And yeah, um, we don't typically do third just because there's not like a third place prize. But especially with these type of competitions, though, like nobody's last because I mean, honestly, some submits have great low polys or great textures, but not so great low polys. So a lot of you all kind of win in your own different ways in terms of like some of you come out with the best UVs, but maybe not so best textures. So it is difficult kind of trying to summarize like who has the most points in terms of that. Um, but let's take a look at your guys's just in case you're curious. But again, like I think you two are both really neck and neck. Um, I do think the texturing on this one, it has more gloss, so it helps it read a little more photoreal, if that makes sense. This one, I think it was the rendering too, maybe. It might not necessarily be your textures, it could be the render, just the light didn't quite hit it right. Um, but yeah, I think the textures are pretty good on this one. And then as for the low poly, both of you did pretty good on the low poly. Yeah, I would say, yeah, this is where it gets interesting because like for these two submits, the texture comes out on top. Um, and then for the low poly on these two, the low poly on this one actually comes on up on top. This one, I think there's much more areas it could get optimized. Um, and then let's check the UVs. Yeah, and then the UVs on this one, the pack is not too tight here. It could really get packed up some more around these edges. These shells could get straightened. And yeah, judging it on the pack here, um, it's a cleaner pack. So it's definitely a tricky one to judge for third place because there's definitely these different areas where you guys scored differently. Um, Yeah, if we scored something like five, I mean, this is probably getting a little too extreme. But like if we scored like 5 points for the textures, I would definitely give it to, um, let me double check. I don't want to say his name wrong again. It's been too many times. Trey. I would give Trey the 5 points on the texturing, and then for the low poly, uh, I would give you the 5 points, Rastum. And then for the UVs, I think you'd probably get another 5 points. I think you came up a bit on top. Both of you guys are neck and neck. So I would probably put Rastum at third. But again, you guys all win in your different ways with your process. But yeah, really great work from all of you. There was actually this submit. Whoops, did I miss this guy's? Let me double check this. Yeah, actually, wait, we might need to pull back on some of this. Okay, um, let's make, I guess these two the contender now for third place. Yeah, because I saw this submit for the first and second, but for third place, I didn't realize it is definitely a contender. Yeah, the texturing's pretty solid. Yeah, I would say it definitely gets the 5 points for texturing. The UVs are a little wonky. Like especially here, I think the paddings could is a little too tight. So I would still give the 5 points to Rustom for this one. And then for the low poly, I think the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, I would still give the 5 points to Rustom for the low poly here. So yeah, no, I think Rustom still holds third place on this. Alrighty, so yeah, that is the first place going to Duneko. Hope I'm saying that right. Valerie second, and third to Rustom. Or is that or it's Rustem? I could be wrong. Apologies if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but congratulations, everyone. Thanks again for participating. It's definitely great seeing everybody submits, and I hope you all were able to pick up good, decent advice that you can utilize for either your texturing low poly. So I hope that was helpful. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, and have a good one. Bye bye.